Hi everyone, Timon Veller here from foxreviews.info. Welcome to this week's edition of the weekly Forex Algorithm Review. I hope you're all well and that you had a great trading week last week. This edition of the review is for the 28th of January all the way to the 1st of February. And in a few moments, what I'll be doing is highlighting a number of important trading areas, as well as management point areas and target areas. And I'll also take a look at how price action moved last week on multiple markets. Now, before we get into this week's review, I first off would like to mention that the YouTube channel for Forex Reviews has now passed 50,000 subscribers. It passed 50,000 subscribers recently, and I owe a lot of that to all those people that are liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos on a regular basis. So thanks everyone for the support. I appreciate you all. Anyway, let's get into this week's edition of the review. Okay, the first pair to highlight is USD, and I'm on the 4-hour chart. Last week in price action, USD was a great performing market for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 115.50 zone area, with price testing near the end of the week, the 113.11 zone area, which is another zone that I've mentioned in recent reviews on this market as well. And in the case of the 113.11 zone area, I hold this area as a potential bullish evidence area. So overall, a great performer was USD last week, hitting that long-term target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade from the 115.50 zone area. And also a great performer because when price came into the 113.11 zone area, the bulls took control, pushing price strongly to the upside. And want to hold in this market this week that I'm expecting more potential continuation to the upside, at least up to this previous low and high looking left, or potentially continuation all the way up to the 115.50 zone area. So I want to hold the 115.50 zone area as a potential long-term target area to the upside for all those people holding a buy trade on this market from the recent test of the 113.11 zone area. And also want to hold the 115.50 zone area as not only a target area to the upside for all those people holding a buy trade, but also a great area on a retest of this important zone to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area, and a potential move to the downside, potentially move all the way down to this previous low and high looking left as a potential management point area to the downside, or potentially look for a move all the way back down to the 113.11 zone area to the downside. So overall in USD, expecting price will continue further to the upside this week, potentially all the way up to this previous low or high area looking left, or all the way up to the 115.50 zone area. So holding the 115.50 zone area as a potential long-term target area to the upside for those people holding a buy trade on this market. And also holding the 115.50 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area, and a potential move to the downside from this important zone. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pair to cover is GBUSD, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in price action, GBUSD was a great performing market for all these people holding a buy trade from the recent test of the 126.97 zone area. Price last week hit that long-term target area that I mentioned in the previous review of this market. And in fact, price broke above this important zone and closed above this important area. So overall, GBUSD last week was a great performing market for all these people holding a buy trade from the 126.97 zone test, with price moving all the way up to the long-term target area that I mentioned in the previous review of this market. And in this week's review, what I'd like to highlight is two important zones. First of all, what I'd like to highlight is that I'm expecting more potential continuation to the upside, potentially all the way up, more price continuation to the upside, potentially all the way up to the 132.85 zone area. And in this week's review, what I'd like to highlight is that the 132.85 zone area is a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area, and look for a potential move to the downside from this important zone, potentially a move all the way down to the 130.40 zone area. Now the other zone I'd like to mention on this market is the 130.40 zone area, and in the case of the 130.40 zone area, this is a great area, a great pullback area to the downside. Now the market's broken above and closed above this important zone, that if price pulls back and tests this area this week or in the near future, that this is a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and look for a potential move the upside, potentially move all the way up to the 132.85 zone area to the upside. So overall on GBUSD, on the 132.85 zone area as a potential bearish evidence area on this market, a great area to look for a potential bearish opportunity in that area, and also on the 130.40 zone area as another area on this market. And in the case of the 130.40 zone area, a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in that area and a potential move the upside from that important zone. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pair to cover is AUD/USD, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in price action, AUD/USD was moving to the downside. Unfortunately, it didn't move all the way down to retest the 70.47 zone area last week before the bulls gave a really strong move to the upside at the end of the week. And this happens sometimes. Sometimes price will get very close to testing an important zone, and then price will take off before it has actually tested that important area. And it can be a bit frustrating, but just part of trading. In this week's review on this market, what I'd like to highlight is much the same as what I've been highlighting in recent reviews of this market. Two important zones. The first thing I'd like to highlight is the 70.47 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and a potential move the upside. Potentially move all the way up to this previous high and low area looking left, or potentially move all the way up long term to the 73.35 zone area to the upside. Now the 73.35 zone area is also another area I'd like to mention on this market in this week's review. And in the case of the 73.35 zone area, this is a great area to the upside to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area and a potential move to the downside, potentially move all the way down to this recent high and low area looking left as a potential management point area to the downside, or potentially move all the way down long term to the 70.47 zone area to the downside. So overall on AUD/USD, on the 70.47 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in that important zone, and also on the 73.35 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in that zone. And also want to mention that it's an if-then process, depending on the evidence, how it forms in this important zone, to decide whether to consider an opportunity in that area or not, referring to depending on what sort of price action evidence forms in that important area. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pair to cover is NZ/USD, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in price action, NZ/USD came very close to testing the 66.94 zone area, which was a target and bullish evidence area on this market that I mentioned last week in the review. Unfortunately, this happens sometimes. It can be quite frustrating. Unfortunately, price sometimes comes very close to an important zone, and then price takes off before it actually gets to that important area. And now this market is retesting the 68.27 zone area. And so what I'd like to highlight on this market this week is that where price is retesting, that this is a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence, depending on the price action evidence and how it forms in this important zone to decide whether to consider an opportunity in this area or not. However, if the right sort of evidence forms in this area, then this would be a great area on this market to consider a potential bearish opportunity in this area and look for potential move to the downside. Potentially move all the way down to this recent low as a potential management point area to the downside, or potentially look for a move all the way down to the 66.94 zone area to the downside. So overall on NZ/USD, highlighting that where price is retesting, that this is a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area and a potential move to the downside from this important zone. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pair to cover is US dollar Swiss, and I'm on the daily chart. Just a quick update of this market this week, as this market resisted at this high area, which was a management point area that I mentioned in recent reviews of this market for all those people holding a buy trade from the recent test of the 98.30 zone area. Want to highlight in this week's review that potentially this could be just a small pullback and then price continues to the $1.41 zone area. However, the bears looking at this recent price action may continue to take control this week, pushing price further to the downside. So two scenarios on this market that I'd like to mention: that the market may pull back and retest the 98.30 zone area. So be aware of that for all those people who are holding a buy trade. And the 98.30 zone area is once again a great area on this market that I'd like to mention in this week's review. A great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area once again on a retest of this important zone and a potential with the upside. Potentially move all the way up to this recent high area, this recent high and this high area as a magic point area to the upside, or potentially look for a move all the way up to the $1.41 zone area to the upside. Now the other area I'd like to mention is the $1.41 zone area, and in the case, my bias is the same, that this is a great long-term target area to the upside for all those people that are still holding a buy trade on this market. And also the $1.41 zone area is not only a great target area to the upside, but it's also an area to the upside, a great area on this market to the upside to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area. And a potential move to the downside, potentially move all the way down to this high area, looking left as a potential management point area to the downside, or potentially look for a move all the way down to the 98.30 zone area to the downside. So overall on US dollar Swiss, holding the 98.30 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in that area if price action pulls back and retests this area. It may not. It may just be a small price action pullback this week, and then the bulls take control again and then move all the way up to the $1.41 zone area. However, if price does retest that 98.30 zone area, I want to mention that this is once again a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in that area. And also on the $1.41 zone area as a potential target area to the upside for those people who are still holding a buy trade on this market, as well as a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in that area and a potential move to the downside from that important zone. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pair to cover is GP Swiss, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in price action, GP Swiss broke above and closed above the 128.67 zone area. And as you can see, price moved very strongly after the break above and closed strongly at this price point right here at the end of the week. And now price is very close to testing the 131.51 zone area, which is an area that I'd like to highlight in this week's review on this market as a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area and look for a potential move to the downside, potentially move all the way down, all the way back down to the 128.67 zone area to the downside. Now the 128.67 zone area is also another area I'd like to mention on this market. And in the case of the 128.67 zone area, this is an area on this market, a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area. And look for potential move to the upside, potentially move all the way up to the 131.51 zone area to the upside. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pair to cover is Euro New Zealand, and I'm on the daily chart. Euro New Zealand is getting very close to testing the 165.77 zone area, which is a potential long-term target area they've mentioned in recent reviews on this market for all those people who are holding a sell trade from the recent test of the 171.26 zone area. And I'm expecting price will test the 165.77 zone area this week. So wanting to highlight this market once again, just to remind you all of what I've highlighted in recent reviews of this market. Wanting to highlight the 165.77 zone area as a potential long-term target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the recent test of the 171.26 zone area. And I also want to highlight the 165.77 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and a potential move the upside. Potentially look for a move all the way up to this previous low and high looking left, all the way up to this high as another management point area, or potentially look for a move all the way up long term to the 171.26 zone area to the upside. So overall on Euro New Zealand, holding potential target area to the downside for all those people holding a sell trade on this market from the test of the 171.26 zone area, a potential long-term target area to the downside, and also on the 165.77 zone area as a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area and look for a potential move the upside from this important zone. Okay, well that's it for that market. The next pair I'd like to cover is CAD Swiss, and I'm on the daily chart. Last week in price action, CAD Swiss declined at the beginning of the week all the way to near the end of the week, and then the bulls took control, pushing price all the way back up to retest this recent high on this market. What I'd like to highlight on this market this week is much the same as recent reviews of this market, and that is two important zones. First area I'd like to highlight is where price is very close to retesting, which is the 75.30 zone area. This is a great area on this market to look for a potential bearish opportunity in this area and look for a potential move to the downside. Potentially look for a move all the way down to this recent low as a potential management point area to the downside, or potentially look for a move all the way down long term to the 74 zone area to the downside. Now the 74 zone area is also another area I'd like to mention on this market, and in the case of the 74 zone area, what I'd like to highlight is that this is a great area on this market to look for a potential bullish opportunity in this area. Of course, depending on the evidence and how it forms in this important zone. And to look for a potential move all the way up if the right sort of evidence forms in this area to suggest to consider a bullish opportunity in the 74 zone area, to look for a move all the way up to at least this previous low as a potential management point area to the upside, or potentially look for a move all the way up to the 75.30 zone area. I also would like to mention that the 74 zone area is the more preferred area based off this market's current trend at the moment. At the moment, this market is in an uptrend. Okay, well that's it for CAD Swiss, and I will note that just because I'm highlighting important zones on the daily chart, that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be looking for aligning evidence and a potential opportunity in these areas on the daily chart. A trader could be looking for aligning evidence and potential opportunities in these areas on the daily, the 8 hour, the 4 hour, the 1 hour, or whatever time frame suits them as a trader. Okay, well that's it for me for this week's edition of the review. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you all. I appreciate all the support, the likes, the comments, and the feedback that I receive on a regular basis. If you did appreciate this video this week, one way of showing your appreciation is by clicking the like button. If you have a question or comment below this video. Also, if you haven't checked out the Forex training on the website, such as the Engulfing Trader, the 5-day training series, the Candlestick training series, or the Zone Trader training series, where you can find out all about this Forex training by clicking on the links below this video. Okay, well I hope you all have a great trading week and happy trading.